As violence has continuously escalated in the United States of America, gun control has always been a widely controversial and well-debated topic. The Second Amendment forbids the federal government from obstructing the right to bear arms. Obama was predicted to be the most anti-gun president in American history. Nonetheless, gun sales in the U.S. have thrived in the past 4 years. Roughly 16,000 murders were committed in the U.S. during 2008. Of these, about 10,886, or 67%, were committed with firearms. In this discussion, we will examine the future of gun control.
Good morning, and welcome to Monday Politics. Today, we'll be talking about gun control, and with me I have Sahad Kassam, Lane Carter, Wes Thompson, and Rajan Anderson. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So, obviously this has been a heavily debated topic, and many people have said that it's not guns that do the killing, it's the people. And I just want you guys to share your thoughts on that.
I think that's completely asinine to even begin trying to substantiate that point. I mean, okay, yes, people do the killing. People do the killing with guns. Like, the sole purpose of a gun is to kill. There's no other pragmatic implementation for a gun other than to kill something. So to assume that, we can have a safe society with tools that are overtly used to kill, I think that's completely fatuous.
Yeah, I read a great statement somewhere. It said, it's not the guns that kill, it's the gun owners.
True, I completely agree.
I think that I agree with the fact that it is an asinine statement. It's just it's frustrating because gun supporters are all for, oh, we should have more guns. Everyone should have a gun. Let's just give guns to everybody, so that they can protect themselves. Here's an idea. How about we make more restrictive laws on more gun control and restrict people, everyone, and then there would be far fewer gun-related crimes, gun-related murders, per year. I think they're up in the 12,000 gun-related deaths per year. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. That has to change.
I agree, and I also think that this needs to happen on a federal level. You can't just do it at a state level because you just go to other states, you get your guns, you go back to your home state. If it's not across the board, it won't be feasible.
And lots of these gun advocates say, oh, their justification for having assault rifles is, oh, if the government comes and takes them away, we're gonna fight back. So, it's just completely ridiculous. They have them for no other purpose. And let's be honest, no militia could take out the U.S. government.
Spends more on defense than the next 20 countries combined.
It's completely ridiculous. These people are delusional. I mean, and they keep saying, oh, let's allow greater and more powerful weapons. Like, where does it stop? Personal nukes?
And I think what people, I completely agree with that point, because I think what people fail to realize is it's not a matter of will we have gun control, it's a matter of where we draw the line. There already is gun control. How many people in the States do you see with anti-aircraft guns? Just walking around with those? You don't, because there's already this. What I would argue is that the people that are vehement gun advocates, they're already in this delusional bubble where they think that they have entitlement to all these arms, but they don't.
But they
really
not
do
allowed.
not.
I agree. Some of the weapons that the military uses, they're not allowed to use rocket launchers. They're not allowed to have drones. They're not allowed to purchase those things. And it is so infuriating when they argue their Second Amendment right. That it's just so frustrating because that's not what was intended. It's very frustrating.
See, the law already requires licensed gun owners to purchase the guns, but already 40% of the people in the public are already buying them without a license. What people are doing essentially is just getting the minority that has licenses to buy the guns, and illegal purchases are being made behind the scenes, such as online and such. And that's why these gun control laws are eliminating these small procedures that are happening behind the scenes in order to ensure the safety of our citizens.
There are almost, I would also just like to add that there are almost, I believe there are almost as many guns sold illegally as there are legally. So it's so much trafficking is going on. This has gotten so out of hand with you know, these Americans saying, oh, we have the right to carry guns, you know, that it's become, you know, so much illegal trafficking. It's just totally out of control. It needs to be reeled in.
You know, these gun advocates, they point to the beginning of the Constitution where it was put in, and really, it was a completely different situation there. The Second Amendment was based on John Locke's ideas that if a government attempted tyranny, you'd have this civilian militia that could reclaim freedom and their rights. But in the modern era, that is just, if anyone thinks that they are under a delusion. The military could crush them, and like back when the Constitution was made, they just had like sort of
muskets.
Muskets. So I'm completely for allowing hunting rifles and instruments that people use to hunt, but why is anything else than that necessary?
I think one of the underlying issues here, as far as I'm concerned, is a deification of the Founding Fathers and the Constitution, and no pun intended, they think that the Constitution is almost a silver bullet answer to everything, and that, well, it was written in here, and the Constitution is now sacrosanct. You know, we cannot change it because it was given to us by our Founding Fathers, and so we have to now find a means of implementing that into our current society when it can be changed. You don't need to, like, the Founding Fathers are people. They were human, fallible just as we are now, and to assume that policies that worked back then can work now, it's completely, you have to have a form.
It's like the fundamental Islamists, you know, who follow the Quran to like the letter. Like, that's, you know, times have changed. There is a context that was put in place there, and it does not apply to our modern day world. You know, it's just not like. Stoning was allowed back then. It should never be allowed now. Like,
how can anyone think that the Founding Fathers were like these like immaculate futurists that, when coming up with the Constitution, completely planned for society as we know it now? You cannot assume that.
One of the major arguments today is that is protection. So do you believe that individuals have the right to protect their own lives and the lives of their family members and their loved ones, or even their property? Like, what?
Well, see, what the Second Amendment does is basically it allows you the right to bear arms. Now, what kind of arms these are is all up to the government on what they're willing to give to the citizens of the United States. What is going on really is in this gun control policy being proposed, they're basically making sure that military arms aren't being in the hands of the public, and the real question is, why does the public need such arms? The military arms, the purpose of someone needing them is to fire as many bullets as they can, as fast as they can. That's the only advantage you have of having these other guns, rather than having the guns that the United States of America is proposing to allow U.S. citizens to have. It seems pretty reasonable.
Really, protection, if the government's coming after you and you want to protect yourself with your AK-47, I mean, that's just going to cause more and more deaths. That's not going to minimize what happens to you. It's just going to amplify it, because probably more of your close friends and your family members will die trying to fight the government. And it's not like Pol Pot is going to become the leader of the U.S. and say, oh, all doctors and lawyers should be executed. I mean, that's just a ridiculous notion. I mean, what are you protecting yourself against? And really, is that protection really going to do anything but amplify the consequences of the government coming after you?
So, rather than banning guns outright, do you believe that if there were better regulations, that would help reduce gun-related injuries and deaths?
You can never ban guns outright. I think it's the very nature of America and how it was founded. There's no possibility of ever being able to ban guns outright. So what you need is restrictions. I mean, guns should be something that, like, you really have to earn the right to. It shouldn't just be this right, and this notion that, well, it's a God-given right, and so I'm automatically entitled to it. With every single right, there are limitations. So why aren't there limitations with the rights to own guns? I mean, I don't know how they can assume that is the one thing which they're completely entitled to. And as I mentioned before, again, they're not completely entitled to it because there are several arms that they don't have access to.
I think the fundamental truth that we have to realize is that truth over time, that the truth that works for one society will change. So truth is fluid, and it can't really, you can't really take ideas. Basically, policies need to change for the times.
I think the stigma surrounding, guns and weapons is so ingrained in like American culture, Americana, that it's just this is, by the way, I think this is largely the reason why they have the outside perception of them is the way it is. It's almost like, I don't know how, it's almost like a macho thing. It's like it's as if you're kind of emasculated if you don't own a gun, or you don't have the right to bear arms, wherever you please. I think this attitude it does nothing except perpetuate the image that Americans have about being closed-minded and ignorant, to a point, just ignorant,
I mean, the fact is some people aren't even willing to have a discussion about reform. Like, how can you not be willing to have a discussion about a gun control?
That shows a huge degree of ignorance.
That shows a complete degree of myopia, and the fact that I think that if you truly think that the right to own a gun is so inalienable, you should be able to discuss why it is inalienable, and not just close it off.
One argument that the gun owners use is that, it's the media that's the violent video games, and sure, that contributes to America's overall violent culture. But I mean, do you not think that everyone having this sort of attachment to guns is a contributor to American violent culture? Like, I mean, it's sort of ridiculous to say that, violent video games promote violent culture, but this idea of, we have our guns so we can shoot anyone who comes after us. Like, is that not violent? I just don't understand.
So if the government has no legitimate authority to ban guns under the Second Amendment, then why shouldn't we have the right to use recreational use to machine guns or bazookas or anything like that?
Because it's not conducive to a society. Having arms like that.
Well, it's just
having arms like that. I mean, how do you expect to walk out in the streets and feel safe, knowing that just anybody is allowed to walk around with this destructive capabilities? I mean, I don't think that armaments are conducive to fostering a healthy society, as far as I'm concerned.
With the knowledge that if everyone has the ability to own a gun, and I really mean everyone, because they say that background checks are thorough, but just with the point that I made previously of how much illegal gun trafficking is going on, it is simply, it's child's play to get your hands on a weapon. It means that, it's just not conducive to a civil society. I agree. How can you feel more safe with everyone having the potential to end someone's life in an instant like that? It's just...
Yeah, I think it comes back to this idea of Americans' obsession with independence. Like, I'm an independent person, when really we should an ideal culture would be like, okay, we realize that as a human race, we are group people, and we need collaboration to survive. And it's enforced by this notion, I'm going to protect me and my family. And that just creates, with the competitive atmosphere in the United States, it just sort of brings tensions up and promotes sort of gun violence. Really.
Also, with this whole safety issue, if you're people, when they say they want to be safe and own a gun to ensure their safety, what are they becoming safe from? They're making themselves safe from other guns owned by other people. And so, if we just eliminate this whole factor and ensure to the American public that that background checks are thorough, everything is thorough, then the American public won't feel as endangered and as many guns won't be needed. We also have police force in our society. We have law and order. By giving guns to everybody, we're losing the whole aspect of law and order in our society.
Authority. I agree totally.
I just don't know how a set of people can get closure in knowing I'm defended from being killed by my ability to kill somebody else.
That just makes you a target.
It seems
exactly.
It's so hypocritical. It's just, it seems like it's just a circle. It just goes back.
On that note of hypocrisy, I mean, even you have the Republican Party that is willing to sacrifice. One of their things that they're far more outspoken on is smaller government. That's essentially one of their big campaign platform, small government. They believe in the Second Amendment so vehemently that they are willing to have a larger government in terms of putting officers in schools to protect them, just so that they can maintain their right to bear arms.
Can we just address the point, about some of the school shooting, the school massacres, like the Sandy Hook massacre and the Colorado movie theater shooting? It's NRA supporters and have said, well, why don't we just arm the teachers?
So,
Arm everyone. If you give the teacher a right to carry a concealed weapon or to, around a bunch of 5-year-olds, what happens if they leave, the weapon falls? What happens? It's just, once you do that, I feel like you're just going to open the floodgates and there will be no coming back from that.
I mean, one of the criticisms of the state's current is that there's an inundation of violence, but having everyone walk around with a gun, I only think that's going to perpetuate that inundation.
it just
of
perpetuates insecurity.
Exactly.
And what I think is essential to realize is these people, they say, oh, it's all the media's fault. It's video games, as I mentioned before. But really, they have to realize that they created that culture with their right to bear arms and the tension that came out of that. So if it's a gun culture, what do you think video games and movies are going to be made?
They're going to mirror that culture.
Yeah.
Also with this teacher issue, if you think about it, not only does it keep a dangerous situation where you have young children around these guns, young children that don't even know what they're doing sometimes. That's not only the only issue though. The other issue is also that just because they're teachers doesn't mean that they deserve a gun. And having a gun doesn't mean that they're gonna stop their temper. Temper is caused by everybody, and if anybody has a small temper tantrum in front of anybody, these assaults can happen anywhere. Just because they're teachers doesn't mean they won't do anything.
Yeah, and if students get angry, they could steal the gun, and I mean, if you're gonna go and do a mass shooting, it's sort of like a pre-planned event that you're going to do.
It's
but
not
if everyone has a gun available,
They're inviting
it's sort of creating like a Wild West culture where you get angry at someone and shoot at them.
And everyone starts shooting. Exactly.
They're inviting students. It's like, here, I have a concealed weapon, please. Like, if you're unstable or, emotionally, in any way, please, I have a weapon on me. Like, feel free, just whip it out.
I don't see how they're going to quell this notion of inundation of violence by adding more guns, by having the capacity to harm more people.
Alrighty, and welcome back. So, I was just wondering, what are your guys' takes on the Piers Morgan interviews about gun control?
Well, I found them very enlightening, to be honest. And he's one of the few people that, from what I believe, he truly is passionate about the subject. 'Cause he gets very, very angry and very heated. What I find kind of amusing is that Alex Jones, he had tried to create a petition to get Piers Morgan deported for his criticism on the Second Amendment, which is protected via the First Amendment. So I thought that was actually hilarious.
It's like, how can you miss number one? It's like right before number two.
Exactly.
How can you miss that? It was, the hypocrisy was actually kind of hilarious.
And, I feel that this criticism about, Piers Morgan only has gun, people who look crazy on his show, is really, it's just that it's not the people who look, it's not about the people who he has on his show, but it's like those people are voicing what really is the movement behind the gun control instead of masking it in sort of lies and
they're the real perpetrators, I think. And I think by inviting them on his show, he is showing just how much he believes in what he's saying. Because the fact that he would invite Alex Jones on his show to yell over top of him, to mock him.
Alex Jones is filibustered him.
Exactly. To the fact that he would even allow that, knowing, I'm sure, his TV persona, knowing what was going to happen, that just shows the degree to which he's willing to argue his points if he had a chance to speak. I mean, because he kind of just got yelled at.
And
it just shows his confidence of being correct.
Yeah.
And Alex Jones did a video after that debate, and he's like, oh, CNN, oh, I was afraid for my life or something
They're
like that.
undercover
But
cops,
honestly,
like-
does he actually think that Sienna, he just made himself look completely ridiculous on that show.
When
He
you
lost all credibility.
Yeah.
When you yell like that, in a debate, you completely invalidate yourself. Because how is anyone supposed to take you seriously when you can't maintain your composure? And it's
Not only do you
constructive
invalidate
argument.
yourself, like you're disrespecting yourself. Like you're making yourself to be a laughing stock. You know, if the sole reason why that you think you can win an argument or win a debate is by yelling over the other person, so they can't talk, they can't ask any questions. There is no debate. It's just one person yelling at another and refusing. And it was frustrating for me as a listener to have to sit there and endure that when Piers Morgan was asking the questions. He was asking a question. It's a simple yes or no answer. It's a simple answer. Please answer the question. He was worse than any politician I've ever seen. He would go completely on a rant that had a tangent that had nothing to do
Like,
at all.
any rational person would look at that and find that invalidating. But the thing is, his base, the people like panders and demagogues, they eat that up.
Yeah.
They see that and they're like, yeah, he's sticking it to the man and sticking it to the government and justifying why we need guns. So for them, they're already deluded enough to think that well, what he did is fine and it's fair.
So, just to get back on topic, do you think that background checks are really a justifiable means to say that the person handling the gun is a safe person and they will use it with caution?
Well, I think that background checks, they're not thorough enough, and really no one has a reason to own an assault rifle or a rocket launcher. I believe that background checks should be done on hunting rifles and that sort of thing, but assault rifles and rocket launchers, they should just be banned outright.
Outright,
See,
yeah.
it's not fair to the responsible owners and sellers of the guns when people are using these guns irresponsibly. And so what's happening is an overwhelming majority of Americans are trying to buy these guns. They should have to at least prove that they are not felons or any such thing. So these background checks
That's what background checks
are.
already do. They already do that. You don't have a prior criminal conviction, but I don't think that's enough. That's not enough.
It's so easily circumvented. It's so easily stepped around that it's almost like, why have background checks at all? It's so easy for guns to be traded and bought.
What I find very interesting about this whole thing is that it's sort of with their debate, their arguments. They're saying, we have to look after mentally ill people. It's not gun owners, but really, what is owning an assault rifle is nothing more than paranoia, which sort of translates into mental illness. So really, by having a gun, you're sort of showing that you're not really mentally
ill. Not to say that you're mentally ill if you own a gun, but the fact is that if you feel the need, why would you buy a gun? To protect yourself against what? Yeah. Against other people with guns.
But in their culture,
why would they have guns?
In their culture, protecting themselves is essentially synonymous with killing somebody. Yeah. That's how you protect yourself, with killing somebody. And as far as I'm concerned, again, the background checks as of right now, they don't even seem like they're that substantive and they're that ingrained. They seem more like guidelines. This is what you should look for.
Formalities.
Exactly.
Almost,
and what I find unnerving when they talk about mental illness is that they say mental illness needs to be addressed. But no, it's the treatment of mental illness that needs to be addressed. And I think people should specify that when they say, because you cannot stop mental illness. That will be there forever. How you deal with it, though, that is where you can take legislative action.
And I feel like that the gun supporters, I'll let you speak, but I feel like gun supporters are just used that as a smokescreen, kind of. It's not a legitimate claim that it should be the treatment. It shouldn't be just mental illness.
But gun supporters also claim that if everyone were armed, that there would be less crime. What are your opinions on that?
I think that would lead to a Wild West environment where you get angry at someone and who can draw faster. If everyone has guns, it sort of perpetuates the already significant portion of American culture that is violent. And I think that maybe you'll have less mass shootings, but gun violence as a whole will go up.
Exactly. I would say less crime. Debatable. I'm not. That's a hypothetical situation, so I'm not sure. I'm not certain whether that would occur. But what I do believe would happen is there'd just be more gun-related deaths, which is essentially what I believe we're trying to prevent.
Well, what's harder to do? Shoot someone or
kill them in any other possible way.
It's just
with
so
assault
simple,
rifles,
too simple.
it just makes gang violence so much worse. And it's not about like, oh, we just need to keep it away from the gangs, because if you have assault rifles available in the country, obviously they're going to fall into criminal hands. It's not like, oh, well, even if we do put these really harsh background checks in place, the gangs are still going to get a hold of these super powerful assault rifles.
Yeah, like available. Period. You know, with the low quality and you know, they are just formalities. I think that these background checks, it's just like, it's almost a guarantee that of course they will get into the wrong hands. You know, it's just a matter of time. But these legislations should be put in place to stop this from happening, to stop it being so easy. If you want a gun, that's sure, okay. If you want a gun, but you must go and prove without a doubt that you are qualified to receive it, and that does not include assault rifles. Those should not be included in a method of protecting yourself. That's unnecessary potential violence.
What I think is even to say arming the entire populations with guns will reduce violence. Well, you know what would reduce violence more? Disarming the entire population. Then there's no guns.
Yes, exactly.
There's nobody to shoot.
Again, that's from an idealistic point of view.
I'm not saying that we should disarm I'm not saying we should disarm ban hunting rifles and stuff like that. But it's sort of, it makes more sense to ban all rifles, all guns, than it does to allow everything.
I agree with that.
But then it brings a question if you ban everything, it forces people to go more, through human mentality, people think more that the more restrictions you place on them, the more they're going to go against them. So by banning it completely, it's going to be just like drugs.
Oh, I agree, especially in the States.
And that could also affect our economy greatly. Our GDP, everything would go down because everything would be in the black market. It's better to have it under government control.
And taxed, I agree.
Get the government the money to put towards the public, and on top of that, be able to, watch over the country and make sure that no faulty purchases are being made.
I agree with that point. I think that the mere fact is that you make it, if it's taboo, then people are just going to go and buy more. There's an interesting statistic that after the Sandy Hook massacre, there were in fact an increase in gun sales because people felt they needed more. So I think that perception needs to be changed. There is not.
Even after Obama got elected, there was an increase in guns.
There's no possibility that you are going to completely eliminate guns. That's absurd. Considering some of the people that we've seen even on Piers Morgan, those are a sample of few of many that are just so adamant and kind of blinded to any other point of view, perspective, or reason,
I'm not a proponent of eliminating all guns. I'm just saying that it's a more sane idea than arming the entire population.
Another argument goes that if handguns were banned, then also alcoholic drinks and automobiles should be banned to prevent drug driving deaths and incidents.
The difference there is it's sort of you have to put two and two together. It's not alcohol and cars are not instruments designed to kill.
Exactly. They serve other purposes, and then as a consequence, they can. But their underlying purpose is not to kill. That is the underlying purpose of a gun, to kill. There's no other practice.
And also, that's why we ban them together. So when alcohol and driving are done together,
it creates a weapon.
It's illegal. So it's an
deadly combination.
It's an instrument of death. just like a gun is an instrument of death.
What we're not taking into perception though is that there's already a limit. Just like there's been a ban on military arms coming into the hands of citizens, there's also a limit on how much alcohol, the percentage of alcohol that can go into a bottle, suppose. Like in the United States, you can only have 40%. After that, you know that it's illegal to go anywhere over that limit. This is the same thing. You're allowed to have a gun, but you're not allowed to go over and get guns that could be harmful to society, in the sense that you could shoot many citizens in a lot shorter time period if you had these very dangerous guns.
Especially because assault weapons, their sole purpose is to kill efficiently and quickly, vast amounts. That is their underlying purpose, and I don't think you need that for defense in a society. You're not out and you're not in a war zone. You're in a society.
I think Americans need to realize that a zombie apocalypse is not coming.
Exactly. as well as the British aren't coming anymore. Like the members of the Second Amendment was they feared tyranny and they just escaped from their British overlords. They're not coming anymore.
Get over it. But I feel like, I think more than anything, you know, that the thing that's frightening to me is in the hands of these people, you know, Alex Jones being one of them, that I would be scared that he is allowed, that kind of man is allowed to have a gun. He's allowed to carry a weapon like that, because it's alarming to me, because if you have more guns in circulation, you know, it just increases the potential. It increases the potential for more killings. There is, you know, where there was not even the thought before, you know, there could be in someone's mind, there could be the thought, the possibility that, oh, this can be used as a method of solving a problem. This can be a violent method, and it would perpetuate violence in America, and it would perpetuate the negative image that is so widely spread of Americans, and it's wrong. It should not be.
Alex Jones, as far as I'm concerned, he's honestly the embodiment of hypocrisy, because he's this like vehement constitutionalist, reveres the Constitution, yet would be willing to strip someone of their First Amendment right. I mean, the whole America was essentially built just on the principle of freedom, and the fact that they would want to stifle someone's freedom of speech because he's criticizing something that's in their amendments. I mean, like how can you claim to be a constitutionalist when you're not willing to have an open debate? And then even when he does go on a show, just filibusters and doesn't actually have a discussion.
And you're sacrificing one for another.
Lane brought up the point that after a massacre there was an increase in purchases. So do you guys believe that there is a domino effect?
Well, I think that American society really needs to change if it wants to reduce its crime. I mean, it perpetuates violence in so many different mediums. I think there needs to be a fundamental societal shift.
What completely perplexes me is that you know, America is, for literacy rate, it is in the 99 percentile. There's so, you know, it just baffles me how such a literate, such an educated populace could have such, you know, ignorant and, you know, just, you know, completely one-track, you know, opinions, and it's just, it baffles me.
I don't think it's only Americans though. I think it's just the way children are being raised nowadays. To solve a problem, if you bring it down to like the schoolyard, suppose, if two children have a problem, have an issue, they don't go tell authorities of the school. They solve it themselves. And how do they solve it themselves? They go through violence, right?
Well,
this could be caused through video games, through the media, anything. But that's in the majority of cases.
For me, I just think America's problem is the refusal for open discussion and deliberation. Like, I think that you truly have a backwards and just myopic view of life if you cannot just have a discussion relating to certain issues.
It's like they refuse to even acknowledge that another point exists. It's just like, no, the one point, they're blind to everything else except that their one view, their one vision. That sounds the farthest thing from democratic, the farthest thing from, you know, freedom of anything that I've heard.
Everyone's living in their own world.
And to me, when you only accept one opinion and you're not open to change, that completely invalidates you for me.
Yep, I agree.
So, do you guys believe that, obviously the underlying reason for a gun is murder or harm, but do you believe that it's just another weapon, or do you believe that that is one thing that really needs
No,
to
it is not just another weapon because of the efficiency in which you can kill
The
people with.
expediency, yeah.
That is why it is not just another weapon, because we've reiterated this point several times, the sole purpose is to kill. Even though you're using it for deterrence, you're using it as deterrence because I can kill you. That is the sole deterrence, death. All a gun does is facilitate death.
Other
Nothing
weapons,
else.
a knife, you know,
Knives can be used
a
for
bat.
other
It's
things.
not, not their only
And
purpose. A gun is a
Switchblades are banned in many places.
Yeah, a gun is a killing machine, and as such, it has no place in a democratic society that should be their primary objective should be through handling situations, problems diplomatically. What example are they setting if they insist upon toting around guns that their purpose is not settling things diplomatically? Their purpose is just draw and shoot. Like, their purpose is to kill. Like, it just makes zero sense to me. I don't understand.
All right, well, I would like to thank you all for coming today, and that is all.